Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Neha. Good morning, everyone. I am Anuj, and I'll be talking to you about the YF Critical Writing Program. I'm aware that I'm one of the people who stand between you and lunch, so I'll make sure I'm quick. This is just a very basic glimpse into what the writing program is all about. This is not a detailed orientation, which will happen later on. Okay, so we have our slides. So let's jump straight into it. A quick show of hands. How many of you are from CBSE schools? Okay, excellent. So almost everyone. Why I'm asking is because that's for me to get a sense of how many people here hate the act of writing. Don't get me wrong, I also went through the same process. But there are fundamental problems in how schools approach the idea of writing. If I can get this slide. Yeah, so I like to call how schools approach writing as something along the lines of the copy syndrome, where our notebooks, in fact, are called copies, right? Essentially, we are given models of what we are supposed to do, and we're simply supposed to imitate them. I was visiting a school recently, and students there were writing something along the lines of a notice for a lost umbrella. And I asked some of the students, why are you writing this? And they said, well, ma'am has told us to write this. And I asked them, what purpose does it serve? Well, it's going to come in the exams. So there's no reflection as to why we are doing the kind of writing we are doing, who is it meant for, what is it supposed to do. Reflection is really missing in how schools approach the act of writing. There's also lack of invention in how they approach writing. In the same classroom, one of the tasks that had been given to the students was write an essay on the significance of films in your life. And this second class was a Hindi class that I'll translate. So one of the students had started their essay off by saying कि फिल्में भूतों की तरह होती हैं, ये एकदम दिमाग पे चढ़ जाती हैं. So films are like ghosts. They have the tendency to possess us. Quite interesting, humorous and creative, right? An essay that you'd want to read. But what the teacher had done was that cut out this line and written in the margins, please follow the examples that have been taught to you in class, which is pretty much like films are important for society, blah, 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 blah. Right, so invention is lacking. Whenever we are taught writing, there's only a mechanical focus on spelling, punctuation. The kind of writing tasks we do are only question answers, essays. So pretty much a whole laundry list of problems that exists with writing at the school level. And writing also continues to be only a marginal or peripheral activity that happens in schools. At the YF, however, we see writing very differently, and we actually think of it as a form of literacy that is fundamental to liberal arts education. 2 points and 2 questions, in fact, arise at this point. One, why is writing so central to our curriculum? And B, how do we teach writing? To answer the first one, I want to do a little thought experiment because I want you guys to also speak. A lot of us have spoken since the morning. A lot of gyan has been unloaded on you, but it's time for you guys to also kind of stretch your wings a little bit. So can you divide yourselves into groups of 2? Just look to the person to your left or right, someone you find interesting, and just form a pair with them. This is also your chance to talk to that person you've been dying to talk to but haven't found a chance to. Okay, so do we have our pairs? Okay, excellent. So just a little disclaimer, no pressure, but last year's batch gave absolutely fantastic answers for this thought experiment. So I will be comparing the quality of this batch with last year's batch. So, but no pressure. Kidding. Okay, so here's the thought experiment. Imagine that on a planet quite similar to Earth, in a jungle there are 2 groups of apes. Both groups are exactly the same in terms of access to physical resources, their own physical built-up, their mental built-up, and everything is pretty much the same. There's a key difference though. In Group B, suddenly a genetic mutation has happened, and they've suddenly developed the faculty of complex language. Group A also has language, but they have animal language, so they can do some very basic communication about food, about predators, so on and so forth. But Group B suddenly can make complex sentences. They can wing words together, they can put together complex ideas, and more importantly, they've also developed the faculty of writing. Right? So this seems like nothing special to us because we're so used to language and writing, but if you take a step back, it's actually a very magical ability that humans have. You have a complex thought, you code it into words, put it on paper, share it across the world, whoever gets it decodes it and is able to kind of interpret what's happening in our minds. So it's almost like telepathy, right? So two groups, one group does not have this skill, just has animal language. The second group suddenly has complex language and writing. Here is the question that you're supposed to think through with your partner. What changes do you think we will start to observe in Group B over the next 1,000 years or so? Is the question clear? Okay, you have about 2 minutes, so go ahead. And there are no right or wrong answers for this because this is a pretty absurd exercise. So feel free to be as imaginative and as analytical as you can. Okay, time's up. Do we have mics in the audience somewhere? Okay, so let's just have a quick discussion. You can basically just summarize the couple of points that you and your partner have thought about. And yeah, please raise your hands. Who'd like to go first? Okay, maybe we can start there. Yeah. Last row and then the row before that. Yeah. Please use the mic. Tell us your name and then quickly summarize what you've discussed. Sure.
Yeah. So we discussed various points.
Could you tell us your names, please?
Yeah, my name's Arjun, his name's Vandit. Yeah. So we discussed various points on how, since when we get a medium for expression, there will be more different systems of cooperation, political reorganization, social transformation, line, myths, everything. But the central idea that binds it together is a spurt in abstract thought and storytelling, and everything else basically stems from that. So, yeah.
Very interesting. So you just made a claim. Could you also tell us what your reasoning is behind it? As in, why do you think this will happen? Because of them having writing?
Yeah. So we actually did put a fair bit of thought into it, but basically I think what we did is just trace back into evolution and what actually happened in the past 1,000 years or so.
So you reverse engineered the thought experiment itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So from there, where we went was trying to understand how, where does it all start from. So basically, when you talk about communication, so when you start with communicating with people, so when you have a simple, a binary language like the ones and alls, it's pretty simple, it's pretty clear, what the intent is, or if you're pointing towards a rock, it means it's a rock. Okay, there isn't much thought into it. But as you keep evolving, as your thought process keeps evolving, you start, you get creative, you start thinking of different ideas, and that's how, you start forming tribes. Someone talked about, groups, I guess. You start forming tribes, there's again, the leaders, and then again, from there there'll be monarchy, and democracy, and there'll be corruption, and there'll be religions, and, all of that tied up. So I think all
The key point I think there is writing
it's
is
the thought process that, what we thought about is that is what evolves. And from there, it just stems into everything else, that abstract thought.
okay, interesting. So something at the cognitive level leading to abstract thought, which will lead to something at the social level, more complex social organizations and corruption.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's have someone towards the left side. Yeah, you, the girl in the black. Yeah. Oh, there's the balcony. We'll go to the balcony.
Hi, I'm Shreya, and so what we discussed.
Your partner's name?
Hi, I'm Saruchi.
Okay, so what we discussed, one of the point is how we'll see the difference in. So one, there'll be a more complex society structure. You can say more of a hierarchy, and also how you'll see a difference in the leadership in between both of these groups. Group A will, primarily focus on more of the physical attributes when choosing a leader, because their primary thought process is around the most basic needs like food or like protecting themselves, escaping the predators. Whereas Group B, now that they have more like a sense of writing and communicating, and they're using more of their cognitive and creative minds, you can see a difference from the leadership moving towards people with more mental stimulus rather than a focus on a lot of
Okay, interesting.
physical.
So styles of leadership will change. And
Yes.
could you repeat the first point that you made?
And because of this, you can see a more complex society starting to form. Having more of a hierarchy.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit more about that and maybe focus on the faculty of writing itself? How do you think writing facilitates complex abstract thought and complex structures, social structures?
Right. So writing is what we use our cognitive and our creative brains when we use when we write. Does not have to do much with our physical appearance or with our physical build. So that is what I was trying to say, that when we have communication and writing as as an attribute in ourselves, we more sort of come out as more intellectual beings, and that's why we become better. That's why the focus on leadership will shift in group B.
How though? That's what I'm trying to figure out. How does writing lead to more complex thought? That actually is the key question that we need to think about. And of course, it's fine if you don't have a very precise answer on
Yeah,
that.
I don't know. Probably because you have, you have legacy, and you can collaborate with others. You can sort of bring together ideas, and you can arrive to a complex idea, even if you don't have one to start with. And because you also have legacy, you have history, you have more storytelling, so
Okay.
you can come out with a more complex outcome.
Okay, interesting. Let's go towards the balcony. Yeah.
Me and my partner, whatever we discussed, we've already heard.
Names,
it.
please, first, right?
She's Anika and I'm Ashwin. The thing is, most of the points we discussed, we've already heard. But one thing which I feel I did not hear from anybody was writing kind of makes things authoritative. Like when people in civilizations which do not have the writing, and when the spoken word doesn't seem to have the kind of authority and the kind of rigidity that speaking doesn't match up to that. So what happens is sometimes what is written down, and people who actually put the pen to write it down, that is seen as a sort of like a gospel and a canon, and people tend to agree with that even if they don't actually agree with it. So, so it creates a kind of schools of thought. That is also, and also another thing which we discussed was it also generates more conflict in societies. Communication also generates conflict because in a group of apes they might have a conflict, but they have no way of sort of elucidating it or seeing it clearly. So writing sort of gives shapes to thoughts and ideas and conflicts. So it makes things more complex.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. You guys have pretty much figured out most of the answers that I was gunning for, what most of the research points towards. But before I move on to that, last year I received a very interesting response during this exercise, and I thought I'd share with you as a digression. One of the students said that Group A will only have sex, but Group B will start to fall in love because they'll have writing and communication. Yeah, but jokes aside, first ever sentence written was not by a philosopher, not by a poet, but by an accountant who was keeping tabs on how many rolls of barley are there in the granary. So the first ever recorded sentence in history, and this is again from the book that Shankar pointed, 29,086 measures of barley received over the course of 37 months, signed Kushi. Right, first ever sentence written in history. What's the point of this? Writing allows for complex transactions to take place. It's very difficult to keep tab of transactions between human beings unless you have things written down. One of the things that creates complex social structures, writing allows for that. So most of the research points towards how writing affects us both at the cognitive and social levels. Very quickly, at the social level, writing increases ability to learn and retain information, which allows for intricate nesting of ideas, which allows for complexity in thought. What I was gunning for, on a piece of paper, you can put together a lot of variables. You can think about various kinds of permutations and combinations between them. Something that memory and oral speech does not always allow for. When you think about a sentence, essentially what are you doing? You have a subject, you have a verb, you connect them together. It's a permutation and combination between different phenomena in the world, which allows us to build complex thought. extended sensory experience. When you have access to writing, you're able to decode experiences that are not present within your direct surroundings. You're able to read about what is happening in Yugoslavia, you're able to read about what's happening back home, you're able to read about what's happening in the balcony. All of those kinds of things are possible because we have access to writing. So lots of stuff happens at the cognitive level, and in terms of social transformations, writing allows for greater cooperation in complex big groups because it allows for complex transactions, as I just told you about. It allows for reputation formation. People who are doing good transactions start to develop reputations over time. It allows for social norms and law enforcement. What we just heard here about how writing creates authority. You create rules, you create norms which people have to follow. There's a certain authority that writing brings with it. And most importantly, it allows for group identities to emerge. People who share a similar form of writing, a similar script, start to develop a common identity over time. There's also evidence to say that a lot of empathy gets generated because things like literature, philosophy, art start to develop through writing. So a lot of research, you don't need to go into the details, but broadly, writing is absolutely central to the human experience. We are actually the second group because we developed writing, our brains were able to transform at a rapid level, lots of transformations happened in our social structures, and we are here because writing allowed us to be here, which is why we cannot have writing as a sidey marginal activity in education. It is absolutely essential if we want any kind of social transformations, any kind of cognitive transformations. So we've kind of taken care of the first question, and we'll quickly go into the second question. Don't have too much time for that right now. But how do we teach writing at the YF? Here is our mission statement, which you might have read on the website as well. Very quickly, I'll read it. The Critical Writing course is an integral part of the Young India Fellowship. Over a span of 10 months, this course aims to develop critical reading, thinking, and writing skills that will help you engage with the world of ideas and enable you to develop and express your own ideas in a well-reasoned, lucid, and engaging manner. These skills will act as building blocks for the multidisciplinary liberal arts education that you will receive over this year and enhance your abilities to navigate the academic, professional, and social spheres around you. Essentially, writing is not just writing, but it consists of a triad: writing, reading, and thinking. All these skills are taught together, and these act as building blocks that will help you engage with all your other courses. How we do this logistically is there are 300 of you, and you will be divided into 20 sections of about 15 fellows each, and we have a wonderful team of 10 preceptors, which is a fancy term for writing teachers that we've come up with at the YF, but they're essentially writing teachers. And each preceptor takes care of 2 sections, and you'll be allotted to a preceptor. You'll get a detailed mail about the process of how it happens and the intricacies. Right now, you don't need to worry about any of that. But just one thing you need to keep in mind is that this course has been designed keeping the diversity of the YF in mind. So if you're somebody who has already written several novels, or you're somebody who has no idea what novels are, it's absolutely fine. This course is for you. There's no need to feel either intimidated or bored by the course. We'll take care of everything. And do I have more time? How much time do I have? Okay, I have 3 minutes. I was told that I should have at least 10 minutes of Q&A. I haven't been able to do that. I'm so sorry, but we do have 3 minutes. So any questions about the course? None at all. Excellent. So all information has been absorbed, and you guys are ready and raring to go for the course. I'd just like to end on a quick note. Keep the larger picture in mind. You guys have got a chance to go back to the drawing board for this 1 year, and each of you has a very unique perspective. You are special, and I don't mean that in a Tare Zameen Par kind of way. I don't know all of you are special, but I mean that in actual empirical terms. All of you are viewing the world through a particular perspective, and each of us has one piece of the puzzle. This year is all about bringing those pieces together and figuring out what you want to do. Have an absolutely beautiful time. That's me, that's my email ID. If you have any doubts, feel free to write to me. And those are the sources that we used for this presentation. So according to Professor Mehta, as you heard in the morning, if you plagiarize, you get kicked out. So I made sure that all my sources are here. And this is something that we'll be talking about throughout the year. And yeah, good luck. May the force be with you. Thank you.